The Zaryon warrior women were the pride of their sector, a matriarchal species bred for war and conquest. Towering, armored, and wielding centuries of advanced technology, they were the embodiment of dominance. For generations, they had crushed civilizations deemed inferior, their laughter echoing through the void as they reveled in their superiority. When Earth appeared on their scanners, a pale blue dot surrounded by satellites and littered with primitive machinery, it was merely another target, a speck to be trampled. Commander Valtraya, the most feared of their leaders, stood on the bridge of the colossal warship Fury's honor. Her crimson eyes glowed as she surveyed the rotating image of Earth on the central display. A backwater planet, she announced, her voice dripping with contempt. Primitive weapons, disjointed governance, and no unifying strength. This will be a short exercise, perhaps too easy to even call a conquest. The other warriors chuckled, their deep, resonant voices filling the chamber. They had studied the transmissions emanating from Earth, fragments of war footage, reality television, and impassioned debates. To them, humanity appeared fractured, weak, and chaotic. The warriors mocked Earth's lack of telepathic unity, their reliance on brute mechanical force, and their strange emotional outbursts. One warrior, younger and less seasoned, dared to question. "Commander, have we not underestimated others before? There are records of defeats, rare, but not non-existent, against those who appeared weak." Valtraya turned to her, an eyebrow raised. "The Zaryon are unmatched," she said sharply. "Those defeats were anomalies, flukes. Do not suggest that this species," she gestured dismissively at Earth's image, "could pose a threat. Their wars are uncoordinated brawls, their science amateurish, and their endurance laughable." The younger warrior nodded, silenced but not convinced. As the ship drifted closer to Earth, the warriors finalized their plans. A display of strength, Valtraya decided, was unnecessary. Intimidation alone would suffice. Humanity would capitulate within hours, overwhelmed by fear of the unknown. Still, protocol demanded they study their prey directly before launching the campaign. A single specimen would be extracted, analyzed, and interrogated. The warriors anticipated this with amusement. What could one fragile human offer them? When the signal came that the specimen had been secured, the chamber fell silent. A human male, ordinary in appearance, stood in the center of the room, surrounded by towering warriors. He looked up, unarmed and unafraid, his expression a mix of curiosity and calm. Valtraya stepped forward, her voice echoing with disdain. "You, human, have been chosen to represent your species. Speak carefully, for your words will determine Earth's fate." The man tilted his head slightly, his lips curling into a faint smile. "Funny," he said, his voice steady. "I was about to say the same to you." The warriors exchanged surprised glances. Valtraya's eyes narrowed. The game, it seemed, had begun. The man stood there, calm and composed, his gaze scanning the towering figures around him. His name was Jack Harper, a former combat medic and seasoned survivalist who had faced life-and-death situations more times than he cared to count. To the Zaryons, he looked insignificant, small, scarred, and unimposing. Yet, his demeanor lacked fear, and that unsettled them more than they were willing to admit. Valtraya stepped closer, towering over Jack like a predator assessing its prey. "Human, state your purpose. Why do your kind deserve to exist under the watchful eyes of the Zaryon Empire?" Jack let out a short, dry chuckle. "Deserve to exist? That's an interesting way to put it. I thought existence wasn't something anyone had to justify. But if you're looking for answers, let me start with this: humans don't back down, not even when the odds look impossible." The room fell silent, the warriors exchanging bemused looks. This creature was bold, if nothing else. Valtraya raised an eyebrow. Big words for someone so small. "Strength is not declared. It is demonstrated. Perhaps we need a test." She motioned, and two warriors stepped forward, presenting an array of weapons and objects. "Choose," Valtraya commanded. "Prove your worth with whatever primitive skill you possess." Jack scanned the options but shook his head. "I don't need your toys. He took a step back and crouched slightly, his muscles tensing. You're testing the wrong thing if you think weapons are what make someone strong. One of the warriors scoffed and lunged, her massive form moving with surprising speed. Jack sidestepped, pivoted, and used her momentum against her, sending her sprawling with a precise movement. He didn't attack further, instead holding his ground, his breathing even and measured. The room erupted into murmurs. A human had bested a Zaryon warrior, not with brute force but with strategy. Valtraya's eyes narrowed. Clever. But cleverness alone is insufficient. Jack straightened. It's not just cleverness. It's adaptability. It's learning from failure, using what's at hand, and never underestimating what seems weak. You see chaos in humanity, but that chaos is why we've survived everything from extinction events to our own mistakes. Another warrior stepped forward, her eyes blazing. Words won't save you. Show us more. Jack didn't hesitate. He pointed to a set of climbing equipment among the weapons. Set that up. High ceiling, low anchor points. I'll show you what endurance really looks like. The warriors complied, intrigued despite themselves. As Jack began the climb, they noted his precision, strength, and refusal to falter, even as the challenges grew more complex. When he finally descended, sweat glistening but his resolve intact, even Valtraya seemed momentarily impressed. You endure, she admitted grudgingly. But endurance without purpose is meaningless. Jack met her gaze. Then maybe you should figure out why I keep going. Valtraya's expression hardened, but the seeds of doubt had been sown. Jack stood amidst the towering warriors, their silence a mix of irritation and curiosity. His calm defiance unsettled them, a stark contrast to the submission they expected. Valtraya stepped closer, her crimson gaze boring into him. Your persistence is impressive, human, but it is not strength. Strength is the ability to dominate, to bend others to your will. Your kind knows only chaos and fragility. Jack crossed his arms, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Is that what you think? That strength is just about domination? Let me tell you something about humanity. We don't survive because we're the biggest or the fastest. We survive because we adapt, because we learn, and because we find strength in the things you dismiss as weakness. A ripple of skepticism passed through the warriors. One of them, younger and less hardened, stepped forward. You speak of learning and adaptation, but your species fights itself endlessly. Your history is riddled with conflict. How is that strength? Jack nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. You're right. We've fought and we've made mistakes. But every war, every challenge has taught us something. You see division. I see evolution. Each struggle sharpens us, teaches us how to be better, how to endure. And when it matters, we come together. That's our strength. You won't see it until it's too late. Valtraya laughed, the sound cold and sharp. Bold words from a species that tears itself apart. Tell me, human, where is this so-called unity when you need it most? Jack's gaze hardened. It's in the moments that define us. When disasters strike, when the odds seem insurmountable, we rise. We've conquered our own weaknesses, ventured into space, and achieved things no one thought possible. And we've done it not because we're perfect, but because we refuse to give up. That's the kind of strength you can't measure in muscles or weapons. The younger warrior hesitated, her expression conflicted. But your emotions, your sentimentality, it makes you vulnerable. Jack smiled faintly. Vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's the root of connection, of empathy. You think emotions are a flaw, but they're what drive us to protect, to build, to fight for more than just survival. Can you say the same? The room fell silent, the warriors exchanging uncertain glances. Valtraya's face darkened, her authority challenged. Enough of your riddles. You speak as though your species is unique. But you've shown us little beyond words and tricks. Jack shrugged. Words and tricks can topple empires if used right. But if you want more, let's test something you understand, strategy. He gestured to a game-like setup on a nearby table, one resembling an ancient chessboard. Show me how a Zaryon thinks. Let's see if your strength matches your pride. The warriors hesitated, surprised by his audacity. Valtraya sneered but accepted the challenge. As the game unfolded, Jack's unorthodox tactics confounded the Zaryon leader. He exploited openings she hadn't considered, adapting to her every move with unnerving precision. When the match ended, it wasn't outright victory, but Jack had held his ground far longer than anyone expected. Valtraya stared at the board, her expression unreadable. Around her, murmurs grew. Doubt was taking root and Jack could see it. You wanted strength, he said quietly. Now you're starting to see it. Valtraya stood over the defeated game board, her expression tight with frustration. Around her, the warriors shifted uneasily. Jack had done more than just hold his own. He'd forced them to confront a truth they were unprepared to accept. But Valtraya was not one to concede easily. Games and words, she said, her voice a measured growl. They mean nothing when the battle is real. Your endurance, your adaptability, it's admirable, but it lacks the power to truly conquer. Show me something undeniable. Prove that your strength is more than cleverness. Jack met her gaze without flinching. Fine, he said. One last test. Something simple. He gestured toward the training area where Zaryon warriors honed their physical and mental resilience. You pick the challenge. I'll face it. No tricks, no games. Just me against whatever you think I can't handle. The warriors exchanged looks, intrigued. Valtraya's lips curved into a predatory smile. Very well. The endurance trial. It's designed to push even the strongest Zaryons to their limits. You'll last minutes at best. Jack gave a small shrug. Set it up. Moments later, he stood in the middle of a harsh, grueling simulation. The environment shifted between extreme heat, frigid cold, and oxygen-depleted air. Physical obstacles emerged at random, requiring strength, speed, and adaptability. Zaryons watched from the sidelines, confident that this fragile human would break long before the trial reached its peak. But Jack didn't break. He stumbled, faltered, and pushed through, each step fueled by sheer determination. Sweat poured down his face as he scaled impossible heights, crawled through narrow tunnels, and braved conditions meant to overwhelm. Where a Zaryon might rely on superior physiology, Jack relied on ingenuity, finding footholds others overlooked, conserving energy when he could, and always moving forward. As the trial neared its conclusion, a hush fell over the room. Jack emerged, battered but standing, his breathing ragged but steady. The warriors stared in disbelief. Valtraya's eyes narrowed, her jaw tight. You endured, she said, her tone begrudging. But endurance is not enough to challenge the Zaryon Empire. Jack took a step closer, his voice quiet but firm. You're missing the point. It's not just about endurance, it's about why we endure. Humans don't fight because we want to dominate. We fight because we have something to protect, something to believe in. Strength isn't just about winning battles. It's about surviving long enough to make something worth fighting for. Valtraya remained silent, her expression unreadable. Around her, the warriors murmured. Jack's words had struck a chord, and even the most seasoned among them seemed to waver. Finally, Valtraya spoke, her voice heavy with reluctant respect. You are different from what we expected. Perhaps your chaos hides a strength we do not yet understand. She straightened, her gaze sweeping the room. The conquest of Earth is postponed. For now. Jack nodded, his body aching but his resolve unshaken. And if you come back, come as allies. We're stronger together than apart. Without another word, Valtraya turned, leading her warriors away. Jack stood alone for a moment, watching them go, before whispering to himself, You'll learn. One way or another,